Okay, so let's get started. My name is Steve Francisco, and this is Marcus Nauer from Eclipse Source. I'm from IBM, and we're here to talk about using Eclipse and making it build in a way to give you support, letting you use your applications well into the future, and not worry about how you get fixes for old code. So let's get started. So who would need to fix old code? There's lots of different situations. If you have commercial products out there that you sell to customers, customers don't like to upgrade every 6 months just because you made a fix. You want to be able to give your paying customers the kind of service they want. If they find a bug, you have to provide them a reasonable fix that makes sense. And support durations of 5 years or more are common these days. If you make your own custom development tools, some industries, for example, aerospace industry, has quite long mandates for how long software needs to be supported, even decades. Airbus was one of the groups that was most interested in this concept of long-term support, where they're making tools that are custom to a specific aircraft, and they can't use anything that they can't give support to for something like 15 years. And so that makes it difficult to try and build on top of something economical, like working on Eclipse and leveraging it, when they're not sure if they can service that 10 years from now. And also, some teams get locked into specific Eclipse versions. Let's say that you're writing code, you don't have a choice over what version of Eclipse you're going to be targeting. If you're deploying additional plugins into somebody else's product and their stuff is built on Juno, you have to continue working with that. Okay, so given that we do have to write code that's going to continue to work on old systems, what could go wrong? And the answer, unfortunately, is lots of things. For example, security fixes. We see this every few months. There's a horrible new security breach found, and it's got an interesting name like Poodle or Heartbleed or Shell Shock to make us scared. Well, Poodle, maybe not so scary sounding, but they need to get fixed. Your customers are going to be saying, well, this thing came out, what are we going to do? Where's your fix for it? And you can tell them, it's not, don't worry, it shouldn't affect your stuff. But no, they want to see a fix that comes. They can continue to use their code and not worry about security breaches and the rest of it. Also, new versions of operating systems come out regularly, and people like to upgrade, and your software should continue to work on it. If it doesn't, you need to be able to service it and get it working again. The same with hardware platforms. New hardware can sometimes mean different glitches that you run into, and you have to make adjustments for that. And standards themselves evolve. You might be writing against a certain protocol, it has new features, or it's been declared obsolete and a new version must be supported, so you need to be able to modify your code. And also governments themselves sometimes put new restrictions or rules that people have to follow as you're working with your code. And you need to be able to take the code that's working fine on the older release and just continue to provide it to your customers in a way that keeps working. So we don't want you to get stranded, like the poor soul in the rock. So we're talking about new problems on old code, and time is not kind. You can have your code working perfectly, you can test it, there's nothing wrong with your code, and eventually something's going to break. And it's not that obvious. You look at it, it's not getting, there's no moving parts, nothing wears out. It should just keep working. But as we said, dependencies get upgraded, security issues come up, operating systems go out of service, and your customers say, well, I can't use Windows 95 anymore. I can't get support from Microsoft, so I'm going to have to move up to Windows 98. So they don't have a choice. We don't have a choice as software developers. And as consumers of it, you want to make sure that if you're buying software that's built on top of Eclipse, you can rely on it being used and being valuable for the life of the product, for as long as you need it to keep working. So what are the traditional choices for supporting software? for Eclipse projects, or software built on top of Eclipse, you have the choice of participating in the projects that you rely on. So if you rely on EMF, you can work on it, and you can become a committer. You can invest in the direction of the project, make sure that the features that you need and rely on are being maintained properly, going in the right direction, and influence how the direction of the project goes. That's one option. Or you can say, my code works on version X of this project. I'm just going to grab a copy from open source because it's out there, and I'll learn how to build it. And any fixes I make in it, they're mine. I'll make them because of the Eclipse licensing. I have to make those fixes public, but I can maintain my own code. If something breaks, I can fix it. If somebody else makes dramatic changes to the code, I don't have to pick it up if I don't want to. That's another option. So you can control everything that goes into it. You need to know how to, you don't have to earn commit rights to do this, but you do have to invest in how do you build this thing and how do you keep building it so that 8 years from now you can still do this kind of operation. You have to have some expertise in the code to know that I'm going to make this code change and it's not going to completely derail the software. The other way is you can keep current with the project releases. As they come out with new releases, just make sure you upgrade to them so that if you tell the team, I found a bug, and they fix it, you get it in the next release, and you can keep going that way. But it may mean that you're going to be adopting frequently new releases, which can be disruptive, make you issue new fixes to customers more rapidly than you might want to, or maybe the customers want. The last one works for most people. Just hope that it doesn't change. It's going to keep working, and it doesn't always work out.
I would say the majority of people are using the last strategy.
Yep. Okay, so when we're running out of options on how to manage this problem, you got to realize that the Eclipse developers that are working on these projects that you rely on, or that the software you're purchasing is relying on, the development teams working on those are interested in putting in new features and performance enhancements into the next release. So the release that's shipping today, Mars, the development teams have been working hard on putting the greatest things into that. They're not so interested in spending a lot of time putting a fix that they just made in Mars and backporting it for Juno users. The focus of the development teams that are donating their time and their resources to Eclipse are always on the headstream. It's uncommon unless it's in their own best interest for the developers to take fixes and backport them to Luna, Kepler, Juno, Indigo, as far back as you might want. So that's because when you are looking at this problem and you say, I've got this problem and my code relies on Juno. You fixed it in Mars. Can you just make it work back for me? It looks like it's only a 2-line change, but it's not so easy to convince the development teams to do it. And if you want to try and take it on yourself, because it does look fairly simple, the code change was just adding a null pointer check. Sounds simple enough. But you have to know how to build the project. You have to know how to, are there any hardware specific issues, and you're going to have to maintain this. If you need to maintain your software for a decade, you're going to have to maintain the hardware that knows how to do the build as well. You have to understand the logic of the project that you're making use of, and in many cases we're using these Eclipse projects because we aren't domain experts in that particular project. We're relying on the community to give us code that works. That's one of the great value benefits of it, and if I now have to go and learn how that code works so that I can make fixes, I'm putting more work into it than I wanted to originally. And of course, you better be performing the right tests. What looks like a simple fix that you're backporting from one release to another might require a slightly different fix in the old code. And if you don't do it right, you could be suddenly giving yourself a lot of instability in your code that you're not sure where it came from. So if anybody has any questions along the way, just shout them out too. So for teams that are looking to get support longer than just for code that they're putting out and they need to be able to support for a long time, we basically have two options. You can find somebody who's an expert and pay them to provide you support. And the other way is to do it yourself. Learn how to, like I said, do the builds, maintain the code, and only do the things that you need to do. That can work too if you have the domain expertise and you feel comfortable doing that. What we're talking about here today is the long-term support working group, LTS. We handed out some cards earlier. If anybody came in late and didn't get one, just they're up here with information, with links and stuff. So what LTS does, it's infrastructure supported by the Eclipse Foundation that allows both of these to happen, both giving people a chance to go out and find an expert to help them get support on pieces they need to maintain, and also for those who want to do it themselves, provide build infrastructure and a reliable way to check in changes and maintain them without having to maintain all that stuff yourself. So LTS is something that's provided for members of the LTS project. And well, for the first way that people can use it is by going to the marketplace and say, I've got some code that I would like to find somebody to help me support. It doesn't cost anything to go in and look at the list of providers. There's about a dozen right now companies that have put themselves up in the marketplace as providers for various projects. So if there's a project that you're interested in finding support for, the platform itself or modeling or whatever it is, you can go there, take a look at the companies that are claiming to be experts and saying that, come to us, we'll talk to you about what you need and give you the right, find a package that works for you to provide support over the duration you need. We also have a way for people that have more general questions to submit questions to the long-term support group. I'll talk about that a bit later as well. And that's all free. You can go in and you can examine what's going on, make contact with companies, and find someone with the right skill set and the right ability to provide you the support you need and discuss pricing with them. The second is LTS provides a stable infrastructure to allow you to maintain your code, do builds, and reliably reproduce the older builds without worrying about having to maintain all of that stuff yourself. So Eclipse is maintaining old hardware and has a full-time release engineer who may be in the room, who's who's willing to, or who provides the support of making sure that these builds are functional. As someone that's providing long-term support, you can maintain software that it could be years and years old, check changes into the Git repository, get it reviewed by peers, built within just within the same day, and start testing it, make use of it. So that's providing, the first is a way to get in touch with people who are willing to do support. The second is if you want to actually do your own maintenance builds and use it, you need to be an Eclipse member, which does have an annual cost to be an Eclipse member and participate and have access to the build infrastructure. And we can find out more about that if anybody's interested in learning about that. We also have lots of information on the LTS website. So I'll let Marcus talk now. Actually, did you want the microphone in case they're recording us? I'm not sure they are.
Let's think it's on, but I can take this.
It makes you feel important.
I don't need to be important. Okay, just in case we are recording. When we were preparing for this talk, we thought it might be a good idea to have a real case study that happened in the real life. And this is indeed based on something that happened to us as a company. But let me first start with a simple question. Who is already using Mars? Okay. So the strategy always to move on the latest version is not the most popular. Who is still using Kepler? Some. And is someone still using Juno for the 2? Yeah, some as well. That happened to my colleagues as well. In our case, we are creating a piece of software for hospitals, and the software is based on Eclipse Juno, and it's not very simple or easy to migrate this piece of software because it's legacy. Large parts of it are legacy, and there are internal dependencies. So there would be a huge effort needed to migrate this to a new version. And some of the hospitals were migrating to Microsoft Windows Server 2012 last year or this year. And then we found out that some pieces of our software didn't work anymore. I think we can switch to the next slide here. What could we tell our customers? Just stick to your old version of Windows. Probably not an option for a hospital where you are in a security relevant environment. The other one is we could migrate to Kepler. There the bug is fixed. It would be time consuming, and that didn't fit in our schedule. Or we can still use, or we can stick to Juno, to the Juno release, but we need to backport some things. And that's what we chose in this case. It was a very simple bug. I don't know if you've seen this one here. There's a small property in the bundle manifest where you can tell the OSGI environment that this bundle is only supposed to run on a Windows 32 OS system. But the platform, the OSGI platform, didn't provide this property correctly because it didn't recognize the new Windows Server 2012. So it was a really small problem. It probably didn't affect only us, but also others. And then we digged a little bit deeper into Bugzilla and found out that this is already fixed in Kepler. That's great. If something is fixed, that makes it easier. But how can we backport this to our old version? Here again, 2 options. Either you could go to the marketplace and find an LTS provider, try to find someone who understands the code, who can get the fix, or write a personal email to Tom Watson and ask him to fix this for us. These could have been options, but we are also a member of LTS, and we could do this as a self-service provider. It's an easy change. I can do this myself. I can backport those files, and I have full access to the LTS build environment, which is a separate Hudson instance. We can check it into Garrett, so I can control exactly what's going to be in this change. And that makes it very easy to just replace a few bundles for our customer project from the new build. What did we do? We asked the Eclipse Foundation to import the correct branch from the 4.2.2 branch into LTS. That's what they are doing to us as a service. From that point on, we can make changes because we are committers on this LTS branch. We decided to make the community, the LTS community, happy and fix this not only for Windows 2012, but also for potentially other and later updates of Windows. Because that's kind of this open source spirit. If you fix it, you try not to only fix it for your own single problem, you try to get a real fix. And our fix will work even on Windows 10. Then we submitted, or I submitted those changes to Garrett. There was another LTS member kind enough to review those changes. And Steve gave his +1 or +2. We committed those changes, triggered a new build, delivered the fixes to our customers, and everyone was happy, especially our customer. The other advantage is that now all LTS members have access to this fix with this, because this fix is worth for everyone. The fix itself, well, I tried to describe or list all the bug reports that are relevant in the code commit. I even updated the copyright here, and these are the little additions that I did. Steve did the code review and verified that the build works, and then it has been submitted to the system, available for every other LTS member. This took 3 days. It could have been faster if it would have been more important. We had this time. It could have been done in 24 hours. And this is one of our real use cases. We had a few other cases, for instance, browser support or little other things that we fixed in the meantime that are available to everyone in LTS. If you're a company developing your piece of software, your own RCP application, for instance, or a server-side application built on OSGI, on runtime technologies, then the first step is you need to find someone, and a company or individuals that are able to fix those bugs. And that's where the marketplace comes into place. The marketplace is well known for looking up Eclipse-related software. There are software vendors listing their products. Others are listing their small bundles that are providing additional functionality to Eclipse. But there's a certain or a dedicated section for LTS, where you can look up LTS providers. You can search for LTS providers providing services for modeling or for the Eclipse platform or for certain areas of work at Eclipse. LTS itself does not dictate anything. Yes, it's still up to you to talk to this LTS provider, to negotiate about what they are covering, the time that they need to fix such a thing. The SLAs, that's up to you. It isn't dictated by LTS itself. And of course, as a service provider, you need to get some money. You need to have some committers that are knowledgeable enough to make those changes. That's not cheap to have those committers, and that's why service providers need to get some money for this. The LTS Marketplace itself is free to use. Everyone can be listed. But if you're contacting a service provider, that's obviously not for free. This is how the marketplace looks like. There's this section about long-term support, where you can find those companies or persons. In that case, there are some that I don't know.
Yeah, those were the newest ones.
Yeah, but for instance, there's Robert Bosch in India providing services. I think they are providing this mainly in the IoT and OSGI area, but there you can find us and other companies. Then you can contact them, tell them your needs, negotiate, and then you're ready to go and you have a working support contract for open source software. That's the highlight in this case. If you don't know where to start, if you have additional questions, if you have a special problem, if you just want to get in contact with us, we've set up a new web form where you can reach out to all LTS members. feel free to ask questions there. It's not the level like my Eclipse doesn't run or doesn't start. That's maybe not something that you should discuss in the news group, but here you can ask questions like, I have a product running on Eclipse 4.2 and I need support for the next 5 years and such things. Right now we have imported some projects into LTS. These are the standard projects. It's Eclipse Equinox, which we are always importing and where we are providing continuous builds every night or every day. Then we have the Eclipse project itself, including JDT and the PDE project. So all these main parts, all of those main parts from this complicated build is covered. And then it wouldn't be me if we wouldn't include RAP here. We provide for our own customers our RAP support and provide them from time to time dedicated RAP versions where we fix certain things. But this is open. Most of the Eclipse projects can be imported. Right now we concentrate on projects that can be built with Tycho, Maven, which have a very standardized build, but in the end I wouldn't rule out any project. In the end it's important that you negotiate with one of the companies, and if they are willing to support this, there should be a solution.
And if you do go to the marketplace and don't see a provider for a specific project you need, use the web form, say, I don't know who could do it, but I'm using this project on this old version, and we'll go out and see if there's someone from that community that's willing to talk to you about doing what's right for that. So there's some business opportunities with this model, with LTS. If you're a subject matter expert and you want to make a bit of money with your expertise and you know how to work with the older versions, you can become a maintenance provider, become an LTS member, have access to the build hardware and the Git repository that's private for LTS members, and start selling your services, maintaining projects that people need support for. And if you're looking for support, you need a safety net, you can find a maintenance provider, and instead of investing full-time employees working on learning and maintaining software that you didn't intend to sink a lot of money into, it would be a lot more economical to find a maintenance provider who already has that, is willing to do this in terms that make sense for you at a fraction of the cost of having full-time employees that are knowledgeable about these things. So just a little bit about the structure of LTS. LTS is a working group, and currently the steering committee is comprised of people from these companies. So Marcus and I both participate in the steering committee, and we have regular meetings where we get together and talk about the direction, if there's been issues that come up, problems that members are running into, or policies that we want to change. We discuss them and make sure it makes sense for the full community. So that's at the end of the talk. We just have some links that might be useful to you. LTS does have a web presence on eclipse.org. It's simple, it's lts.eclipse.org, where you can find out more information and contact us by email, contact us through the web form. You can also talk to us on the mailing list. We'd be happy to engage with you and make sure you're finding the support you need.
And you can talk to us here at the conference or in the evening. I think we'll be around.
That's right. That's all.
Thank you.